This Chat with the Experts is brought to you by Angie's List on 93 WIBC.
Welcome back to Chat with the Experts, brought to you by Angie's List. We have had a really great show today with the help of Mike Robertson of iFast. He gave us some great tips to focus on fitness during the holidays and get a leg up as we head into the new year. But we're not done talking about personal fitness just yet. We're about to turn our attention to our Writer's Block segment for a chat with someone who knows what getting in shape is all about. Today, we're happy to welcome Adam Wire to the show. He's a 14-year journalism veteran and the curation editor for Angie's List, checking facts, correcting errors, and improving our overall storytelling ability. He's a Ball State grad with newspaper and magazine reporting experience who enjoys cooking, working out, and talking about his favorite sports teams, the Cincinnati Reds and Cincinnati Bengals. Adam, welcome to the show.
Thanks. Good to be here, Kyle.
Well, as I mentioned, you're a bit of a sports nut, and I wanted to start off with that. That's one of the first things we bonded over in the newsroom. We used to sit next to each other. We're getting pretty late in the season now, and the Bengals are looking pretty good. How are you feeling?
It's been an unusually enjoyable season. But as a Bengals fan, there's always that trepidation that the other shoe's going to drop at some point. It's been 25 years since they've won a playoff game, so It really all boils down to January. But all that said, I'm still enjoying the ride while it's going good.
Yeah, and as I was going through my typical doomsday scenarios when the Royals were in the playoffs, you were there to tell me to keep my chin up, so I will do my best to help you along the way during the playoffs. Well, a lot of folks in the Angie's List newsroom know you as a guy who's participated in a lot of events, marathons, races that go on around the city. Fitness is something, obviously, that's important to you. Is that something that's kind of always been a part of your life? Yeah,
I was fortunate in that I grew up in an environment where fitness was always around me, but it was never pushed on me. My parents were not competitive athletes. However, I always saw them riding their bicycles together. They played tennis together. They swam together. And by swimming, I don't mean just jumping in the pool and flopping around. I mean actually swimming laps. And my brother and I picked up on that, whether consciously or subconsciously. I'm not entirely sure, but my brother was a competitive cyclist, biked at the Little 500 down at Indiana University in Bloomington. And I ran cross country and track in high school competitively, and have added weightlifting to my workout regimen since then. The running is I got back into that fairly recently, but fitness has always been a part of my life in some form or fashion.
Yeah, like I mentioned, even since I've known you, I know you've done several different marathons and races. Was there something that made you want to start taking that serious again and get involved in those kinds of things?
It's kind of hard for me to recall exactly what motivated me to get back into it. It might have been a couple of colleagues, coworkers who were out running on a particular day, and I finally decided it was time to go out and join them. Yeah. And it went well, and it went well enough to the point where I decided, and this was a couple of years ago, I decided that I would run in the 500 Festival Mini Marathon. And this was last year when I ran in it, and that went well also. So I've dealt with some injuries since then, just little nagging things here and there, but was healthy enough to participate in the Monumental Half Marathon just a month ago. Yeah. In early November, and that went well also. So kind of dialing it down right now, just running a couple days a week, lifting once or twice a week as well. That's dialing it down by my standards anyway. Yeah. And then we'll ramp it back up next year for the mini marathon again, hopefully.
Yeah. So those two races you mentioned, are those the two things you've done, or have there been some other events that you've taken part in as well?
Yeah, those are the two primary things. I've run some 5Ks here and there. Angie's List always participates in the Corporate Challenge, which is a citywide thing that has taken place the last couple of years out at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. Yeah. And I ran the 5K and the 800-meter run each of the last 2 years at that event, and felt like I did pretty well. So for the foreseeable future, it's hard to say what's going to be happening, next September when that event rolls around again. But all things being equal, I'd love to keep doing it as long as I can.
Yeah. So for the majority of the show, we've talked with, a professional trainer and Mike Robertson, who's given us tips and stuff. But having you on, as you put it, we're kind of talking in layman's terms now. For the rest of us out there, when the training session ends, what happens? How do we go about living this life of making fitness a priority?
Right.
And talking about these events like the marathons, Corporate Challenge, what do you do to prepare as you're coming up close to doing one of these bigger races?
Well, it depends on the length of the race. At least in my case, for the Monumental Marathon and the 500 Festival Mini Marathon, I would start my training for those about 4 months in advance.
Okay.
Some people might need more time than that. Some might need less. It's kind of an individual thing. That was just kind of the time frame that I had determined. I went online and looked at some training regimens that people had suggested, kind of compared them with what my goals were and what kind of shape I was in, and kind of tailored a workout or a training regimen, I should say, to fit what I was trying to do. For the Corporate Challenge and for shorter races, you don't have to train as far out for that. I think maybe I would go a couple months out for those.
Sure.
But at the same time, shorter races, I would do a little bit more high intensity stuff and not focus on quite so many miles in getting ready for those. For shorter distances, you're going to train shorter distances, basically, and vice versa.
Well, outside of, participating in something like a marathon, what's been most helpful to you when it comes to achieving just your personal fitness goals? Has there been some things that have kind of motivated you?
Well, I think my background helps mentally when things are getting tough. I mentioned earlier that I ran competitively in high school, cross country and track, and had some decent success there. So I'm able to draw on that from a memory standpoint and say to myself, look, you've done this before, you can do it again. While at the same time, obviously being aware that now I'm 40 years old and I'm not going to be nearly as fast as I was when I was 18. Sure. But at the same time, knowing that I have that in my memory bank, that I can draw on that experience has been very helpful. And then from a motivation standpoint, I'm a pretty competitive guy, and when I set out a goal to do something, I'm going to try to do everything I can to make it happen. Life will get in the way sometimes. For the Monumental Marathon, I didn't get to train for that nearly as often as I would have liked because, there are other priorities. You got a full-time job. You've got family, friends, fiance in my case. So there's a lot of things to keep you busy. But if it's really important to you, you'll find time to do it. And that's what I've tried to do. Yeah,
I was going to ask if you've ever had times where it was difficult to stay motivated. That's something we kind of talked about a little bit on the show. And I know I see you. It's not irregular or abnormal to see Adam walking into the office with a gym bag or see you out running. So what happens in those moments where you're not feeling the motivation, I guess?
Yeah, sometimes it's tough, and sometimes it really is best to just take a day off. I know in my case, maybe even more mentally than physically. It can be a grind to train for things like this. So obviously there are going to be days physically where you're not feeling 100%, and maybe it's best to just rest that day.
Right.
I don't think it's necessarily healthy to go, and I think Mike alluded to this in his portion of the interview as well. I don't think it's necessarily healthy to go 60 minutes a day, 6-7 days a week. You've got to let your body recover, and you got to let your mind recover.
Yeah. Well, what have you enjoyed about Angie's List dedication to the wellness of their employees? Because we have a pretty unique situation, and there's so many opportunities to get involved.
The wellness center we have at Angie's List was a really big draw to me when I interviewed for the job here initially 4.5 years ago. I didn't know it was here until I came down here for the interview. Got to see the facilities, got familiar with the commitment that the company has to its employees' wellness, and then also the latitude that the company allows employees to devote time to working out. And that was a big draw for me, and it's only gotten better over time. Anybody who spends any time in that wellness center is going to say good things about Kelsey Taylor, our wellness director, and I'm no exception. She has been an invaluable asset, whether it's correcting my form on a certain lift that I'm doing, helping me manage pain if I'm going through a certain injury, suggesting a workout to improve a certain body part I might be trying to get stronger.
Yeah.
I've been to several of her boot camps, which have been, an outstanding, fitness benefit. So without question, it's been a great place to work from development in that standpoint.
Yeah, absolutely. And they know what they're doing in the sense that the more people get involved as you're sitting there seeing other people take part in these workouts, it kind of spurs you on personally. I know it's done that in my own life to kind of start taking those steps myself. As we finish up today, quickly, dream with me for just a moment, Adam. The Bengals overcome the odds. You see Andy Dalton holding the Lombardi Trophy as the confetti rains down. What's your reaction?
Am I dreaming? I've waited 40 years for this. Well, not 40, but close to it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that would be surreal. That's the first word that comes to mind.
Yeah.
No question.
Well, best of luck to the Bengals. And Adam, thank you so much for taking the time to come on the show and share with us your experiences today. We really appreciate it.
Thank you, Kyle. Appreciate the opportunity.
Again, we want to thank Mike Robertson of Indianapolis Fitness and Sports Training for coming on the show. If you missed anything at all, you can catch our past episodes on iTunes. Just search Chat with the Experts and hit the subscribe button to stay up to date on every show as we release it. That's going to do it for our show this week. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us. This is Kyle Hawk. You've been listening to Chat with the Experts, brought to you by Angie's List. We'll catch you next time.
Angie's List believes that hiring great local service providers should be easy. Whether you need a plumber or a pet sitter, you can find one at angieslist.com. See ratings and reviews in hundreds of categories, shop popular offers, and request scheduling assistance directly online. Memberships start at just $9.99 per year. That's less than $1 a month. Join today and get 40% off with promo code WIBC40. Visit angieslist.com to sign up.